Practically every month now, we are seeing a news story about how the Israeli government is mistreating the Palestinian people. Now, it's clear that the status quo is not working. People in Gaza, people in the West Bank, and Palestinians that are living in Israel are being mistreated, are facing human rights abuses. Bernie Sanders was at the J Street conference where he proposed a solution, a potential solution to dealing with Israel's human rights abuses.
And my solution is to say to Israel, is you get $3.8 billion every single year. All right? If you want military aid, you're going to have to fundamentally change your relationship to the people of Gaza. In fact, I think it is fair to say that some of that $3.8 billion should go right now into humanitarian aid in Gaza.
All right. Now, if you aren't all that engaged in this issue, this may not sound like a big deal to you. But this would be a massive shift in how the Democratic Party has treated the Israeli government. So usually what the U.S. government does is just sit back and let Israel do whatever the hell they want to the Palestinians. But now Bernie Sanders is actually proposing a challenge to the Israeli government to change your behavior, stop committing these human rights abuses, and then you will see this military aid. But otherwise, you won't have access to it. So this is using the power that the U.S. government has abroad for good. So usually the way the U.S. government uses their power is through, military incursions, is through regime change. But here, they're using it to promote humanitarianism. I mean, like, this should be the default position of the U.S. government, but it hasn't been. So let me just read a bit about this from HuffPost. Sanders' remarks, delivered at the annual confab for J Street, which advocates for peace between Israelis and Palestinians, represent a top presidential candidate's boldest departure yet from that norm. J Street officials didn't feel the need to run damage control. Neither did Sanders' campaign, and so far his rivals for the Democratic nomination haven't attacked him for his comments. At the end of former President Barack Obama's time in office, Democrats regularly boasted about the massive new annual aid package he had secured for Israel. This is where they are now. Sanders has driven a lot of that change. The independent Vermont senator, who in his 2016 primary run demonstrated the potential for mainstream Democratic realignment on Israel with frequent commentary on respecting Palestinians and tough words for the traditionally dominant pro-Israel lobby AIPAC, seemed omnipresent at the J Street conference. Of the four politicians who spoke Monday, he drew the loudest cheers. Even when he wasn't in the room, like at a side panel on Palestinian organizing, his name came up. Rowan O'Day of the group New Story Leadership spoke of him as a model for listening to the community's concerns in a way powerful Americans usually haven't. So Bernie Sanders is changing the conversation around how the U.S. government should treat the Israeli government when it comes to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. No other candidate even comes close to this. And you see this with other issues as well. Bernie Sanders actually has an eagerness to challenge power. No other candidate is showing that. No other candidate, especially on foreign policy, has anything that comes close to what Bernie Sanders is offering here. I mean, it's funny to look back to 2016, when Bernie was looked at as the weaker candidate when it came to foreign policy against Hillary Clinton. And that view only existed because Hillary Clinton was the former Secretary of State, so she had, job experience in that role. But what was her judgment? What was her record? That really wasn't explored as much as simply, she was Secretary of State, so clearly on foreign policy, she knows what she's talking about. But she didn't. Bernie Sanders actually does. And he has evolved on this issue as well. He's put a lot more depth into his foreign policy than he had in 2016. So this is a much better candidate. Bernie Sanders is a much better candidate now than he was 4 years ago. And when you see high-profile endorsements like Rashida Tlaib, an American with Palestinian roots, endorsing him, potentially the first Jewish president here. I mean, we are looking at a potentially historic presidency on a number of fronts. And having somebody that is Jewish be able to challenge the Israeli government the way he is without being called an anti-Semite because he lost half his family in World War II. I mean, it's obvious here. This would be the candidate, the president, to actually change what is going on in Israel. So, I mean, a lot of people don't care about foreign policy, a lot of American voters, because it doesn't affect them directly in their everyday life. But this is an issue. The way America treats the rest of the world, the power that they hold, how that power is used. You have to understand the importance of this. And this is just one piece. Obviously, the foreign policy, section of this candidacy is a lot wider than just Israel-Palestine. But this is a piece that shows you Bernie's willingness and eagerness to challenge power, and doing so for human rights.